Good morning. Happy Saturday. I'm gonna wait and see if anybody jumps on. I'm actually painting a birthday card for my grandson because Monday is his birthday. He's gonna be a year old. And he's coming over today so we can have a very social distancing little party with 5 or less people. Poor guy, having his first birthday in a lockdown, which is not, I'm not real happy about that, but it is what it is. And then I ordered stuff from Amazon for him and it's not gonna be here. So I'm really disappointed about that, but I'm trying to not have an emotional reaction to it and look at it as, you know, what can we learn from this kind of thing. So good morning, Amanda, how are you? I feel like I haven't seen you forever. I'm waiting for a few more ladies to jump on here. If you want to share this, that'd be great. That would be awesome, awesome, awesome. But if not, it's okay. So, looks like we've got 3 people on here. I can't see the other 2. I don't know why. I wonder why that is. It says 3. There's Angie. There's 2. Cool. Angie, I'd love for you to share again. It'd be awesome. Painting a little card for the grandson for his first birthday today. Well, it's actually Monday, but we're doing a little celebration today. Doing a little watercolor. I wish I could show you the picture, but it's a little fox, and then it's going to be carrying a balloon that says 1. Fun, fun, fun. He's 1. If you guys want to share this, that'd be great. Amy, if you could share, it'd be awesome. So yesterday, I don't know who caught it yesterday, and if you didn't, it's on my page, and I'm actually going to upload those to YouTube at some point. Just been really busy with work. But yesterday was about knowing yourself and, gosh, I can't even remember. It was about knowing yourself, you know, and honoring yourself. And I was thinking about it this morning and what would be a good talk for today and continuing this, you know, wholeness of women would be about boundaries. And I know this is something that we all struggle with, including myself. I feel like it's a daily struggle, learning process when it comes to boundaries. And when I'm doing work and counseling with people, you know, I see this as probably like between boundaries and codependency, which they kind of go hand in hand. These are the top 2 problems that I see a lot. I couldn't figure out how to comment. I miss you too. You're doing it now? You're commenting now? That's awesome. So, you know, knowing yourself, when you start knowing yourself, you start to recognize like what your values are. So, you know, for example, your values might be, see, this is going to be the background, and then I'm going to do the fox, but I can't do the fox while I'm on here with you guys. So your values might be, you know, that you want honesty. Your values might be that you want truthfulness. A value you might have is, you know, you value your quiet time, and you might value authenticity in relationships. You know, you might value a particular hobby that you have. You might value your home, your family. Like, we all have values, okay? So knowing yourself starts with understanding what your values are. And you really have to get clear about what your values are. And it's interesting whenever I do this exercise with people, I have them draw a circle and then I have them put their values inside. And a lot of people don't understand what their values are. They don't know what their values are. So that's part of getting to know yourself that I talked about in the other video. So once you know what your values are, you have to have boundaries for those values. And the way that I describe it for people is if you drew a circle and you put all your values inside the circle, and they were like your little sheep inside your fence, the fence was the boundary, right? You're keeping your values safe from predators coming in to take away your values, right? So sorry, I was reconnecting. So the boundaries serve a purpose. It's a boundary line, just like in sports. If you play sports, There's boundaries because it's fair. It keeps one team safe. It keeps the rules, fair between the two parties. Where that team's position is, and they know where your position is, and the rules, right? That's why the game works, So we have to have boundaries for ourselves. And then other people, they have boundaries as well. They have their own, each individual has their own set of values, right? And let's be honest, not all of our values, if we were really honest about our values, not all of our values are healthy values. So other people might be protecting their value that's not necessarily a healthy one, but we still have to honor that and respect that. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with the 12 steps with, like Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. Yeah, it is. It's true, Amy. But, I've been kind of working through that myself, the 12 steps just for myself, not because I'm an alcoholic or a drug addict, but because I'm a recovering codependent. And what that means is codependency means that you feel responsible for other people's feelings and emotions to the point that you try to control the situation and keep people pleasing so that that person will feel better, right? And I learned that because, a couple reasons. My mom was always depressed and I always wanted her to feel better. So I always did this dance to try to make mom feel better because I wanted to feel safe. And then in my first marriage, my husband had a problem, and I was always in connection here. So I was always trying to do the dance to try to make him feel better so that the kids would feel okay, like all of that. So the 12 steps, the first step is that we admitted we were powerless over drugs, alcohol, codependency, controlling others, shopping, eating, whatever, and that our lives had become unmanageable, right? So how that relates to boundaries is you have to recognize, where are there some areas in your life that seem unmanageable, that seem like you're constantly beating your head against the wall, like you're constantly trying to change something and it won't change. That's when things are unmanageable, right? So when things are unmanageable, we have a tendency to want to avoid pain. And when we want to avoid pain, we kind of, our little boundary circle that I talked about, we let people in that circle that we shouldn't let in. And what I mean by that is we compromise our values. We compromise what's important to us. For instance, if we say our value is honesty and authenticity in relationships, and we can't be authentic and honest in relationships with certain people, then they probably shouldn't be in our circle. Now, does that mean that we have to hate them and they should be completely out of our lives? No, not necessarily. But they can be on the outside of that circle. And we can show them love and kindness, and we can respect their boundaries if they don't want to change, or if they have a value, like we can respect their boundaries and not try to change them, but at the same time try to protect ours. So for example, if you feel like you're trying to be honest with someone about something and they don't take it well or they become defensive, then you learn that it's not, you can't let that person into that part of your heart. And it's a shame that it has to be that way, especially if it's a close relationship. But the problem is if you keep trying to push that and you keep trying to say, but I want you to hear me and I want you to understand, and they don't, you're only frustrating yourself, and then your life becomes completely unmanageable, right? So, understanding a boundary for authenticity or honesty or integrity or any of those things, if you're letting people into that circle and they're not on board with your values, they don't have those same values, then my dog and her ball, then that's why you're frustrated, right? I always tell people that if you are operating outside of your boundaries, if you're having problems, in any area of your life, look at your boundaries. Where are you letting your boundaries down? Where are you saying yes to things that you should be saying no to? Where are you trying to take on other people's values? Like a lot of times that we do, especially codependence, I've been horrible about this in my life. I try to shape shift and be a chameleon, right? With people in my life that, you know, I try to be like them, or, you know, morph myself into a version of them to feel loved and feel accepted. And all the while I'm losing my own identity, my value system, right? And then later on down the road, we wonder why we're so pissed off all the time or angry. It's because we kind of have sold ourselves out. We haven't necessarily, you know, protected that value and that boundary in ourselves, you know? So you have to first understand what your values are and what's important to you. And then you have to start developing boundaries. So how do you develop boundaries? What do you do to develop a boundary? Well, it's kind of like your rule for yourself. And, you know, it's done through body language. It's done through speech. It's done through actions. And I think the biggest thing, if I could give you a piece of advice about boundaries, and I'm learning this myself, like I'm always learning something. And in the midst of teaching my clients stuff, I'm always doing my own work. So the biggest thing you can do about boundaries is not engage in the emotion of the other person. Because as soon as you engage in that person's emotion, and not that I'm not saying you shouldn't feel someone's sadness or be with them in their pain, but when it's very uncomfortable for you and you feel this need to go, oh, but wait, I got to make this person feel better. That's when you have to kind of like back up and go inward, look at yourself and say, okay, what do I need to do? How can I learn from this? What's going on inside of me? Why do I feel this need to make this person feel better? Why can't I let them own their own pain, right? So not having an emotional reaction to something that somebody does is probably the first step. And that takes practice, because for so long our brains have learned that, you know, we have to, our brains have been on a certain program and a certain circuit for so long that it's hard to break that habit. So being aware, or like step one says, admitting that we're powerless over a situation. Like for me, I'm powerless over other people's emotions and behaviors. And I've had to really learn that being a counselor, because honestly, if I didn't work through some of my codependency issues being a counselor, I'd be a wreck all the time. I'd be like, oh my gosh, this person didn't get fixed and that person didn't get fixed, you know? So, you know, we have to let go of that need to fix, because for that person, if we're trying to fix them and change them, then we're infringing on their boundaries. We're not allowing them to change and be the person that they need to be, whether we like it or not, right? Now, if that goes on and it continues and it continues and it continues and it's constantly, it's back and forth, then yeah, you have to maybe look at this, a point where does this person need to be in my life? Is it constant turmoil? Is it always, you know, there's no growth, there's no development, there's no change? We have to really look at that and be honest. And that's where we all get stuck. We all get stuck in that place of change. We don't like it. None of us like change. The only person that wants someone else to change them is a baby with a dirty diaper. Like, I had a professor that told me that once, and it's golden. Like, you know, we cannot change other people. We can only look inward and change ourselves. So for women, how that specifically relates to us is that we are I really believe that God created us to be nurturers. I mean, we're mothers. We can, you know, the babies come out of our body. We're immediately like, you know, breastfeeding and, you know, bonding and nurturing and caring for the needs of someone else. You raise your children, you're constantly caring for the needs of other, you know, the kids. I can remember like when my kids grew up, you know, and moved on and started living their lives, it was really hard because I had so much of my identity wrapped up in my kids, you know, and, you know, when we wrap up our identity, it's not that we shouldn't be, you know, be proud of being mothers or wives or whatever, but when we get our whole identity from our kids' behavior, our spouse's behavior, or whatever, and that's how we really feel love all the time, we're really going to be disappointed, because humans all have their stuff, they all have their baggage, and what we have to focus on is how to love ourselves. And how we love ourselves is by knowing our values, knowing what's important to us, protecting those values with boundaries, respecting the boundaries that other people place in their own lives. We can't force people to change. And that's where frustration comes in. Like, I talk to a lot of people who get frustrated because I don't get why this person won't change. And I was like that for years. Like I was just angry for years about why people wouldn't change and why won't you just do this and why, and you know, and I finally had to get outside of myself and say, they're not you. They're not you. They don't have your personality. They don't have your DNA. They haven't had your experiences. They haven't had any of this stuff that you've had. All right, I'm taking the dog's toy away because she's driving me nuts. Stop. Sorry. So, you know, they're not us, right? So we have to have our own identity and our own values. And that's work. Like that's going to take some work. And if I were you, what I would suggest that you do is you get a piece of paper and you draw a big circle in the middle of the paper and you start writing down all the things that are important to you, that you value, right? So you would write down, you know, my family. I know a lot of you ladies would write down my family, my kids, like that would be the first thing. But what I also want you to think about is what core values are important to you, right? Is faith important to you? Is expressing your faith in a certain way important to you? Because like for me, you know, I have a lot of problems with organized religion. Sometimes I believe in God, I'm a Christ follower. I believe in the grace of the cross, but I have a lot of times, you know, I feel like, you know, it could be done different. And that's a value I have of mine. But I have a lot of people that come in and say, oh, but the Bible says this and the Bible says that, and this person says this and this theologian says this. But then I have to go back and say, but this is my value. This is where I am on my journey. And I would like for you to respect that as I'm respecting the path that you are on your journey, right? So that's another value. So you write the values in a circle and you look at them, right? And then on the outside of the circle, what you're going to do is you're going to write down all of the people that are in your life kind of on a daily basis or regular basis. Family, friends, people that are integral in your life. And once you get all those people written down, what you're going to do is you're going to circle the ones that share a lot of your same values, okay? They don't have to share all of the same values, but a lot of them, right? And I think what you'll notice is the ones that are left over that haven't been circled, those are the ones that are really, you're having some conflict with in your life. It almost always works when I do this with clients. Almost always works. That's where you're having the conflict with people, is because they don't share your values. You don't have the same values as them, but yet you're trying to make it work. You're trying to do these things and you're just beating your heads against the wall because you don't share a lot of the same values. Now, does that mean that you can't still be friends with someone that doesn't share the same values? Absolutely not. I think that's part of what's wrong with the world, is we all have this expectation. They're all supposed to think alike, act alike, look alike, dress alike, blah, 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 whatever. We're all supposed to be alike. And if we would just accept each other as we are and accept our differences, I have so many friends in my life, you know, that, you know, aren't really even Christ followers that I can still like have relationships with because they respect my values. They don't try to change that about me, and I respect their values and I don't try to change that about them, right? And they see Christ through me when I do that, not when I force them to do that, you know? So, you know, it's just a matter of looking at all of that, right? Now, the other part of this that I want to talk about before I finish is understanding that, you know, other people have a right to their own boundaries and their own opinions and their own things. And even though we may see that they're wrong, or maybe they're misguided or unhealthy like patterns of belief and behaviors, we still have to allow that person to come to their own crisis of belief, right? We can plant seeds. The biggest thing we can do to foster change in others is to live our own lives authentically, and be real. And then hopefully they'll change, but we have no control over other people changing. And whenever we try to change someone else, and guys, I'm learning this too. Whenever we try to change someone else, we are infringing on their rights, on their journey for them to be human and to go on their own path and figure things out. It doesn't mean that we have to like it, but we have to accept it. We have to accept that that's part of who they are. And then we can make a decision based on our own values. Okay, is this something that, you know, a person that I want to be in my life? Is this something that I want in my life? Because you have the right to make that decision and have a boundary if that's someone that you don't want in your life, right? So, you know, with women, you really have to learn that saying how you feel and being authentic and learning to say no to things that aren't yours is so crucial. And it's hard for women because, you know, let's be honest, we've been taught that we have to be, I mean, there's been a lot of church abuse that says you have to be submissive and you know, that you have to be quiet. And, you know, there's been a lot of abuse with, you know, with men. Let's be honest. I'm not a big feminist, Me Too person. Like, don't get me wrong. I think women take it too far and they use that to be a victim sometimes. But, you know, let's be honest. I mean, men have not held up their end of the bargain in families a lot of times, you know? So that's caused a disconnect in the family system, right? But then a lot of times the women get blamed for that. So, you know, but we're naturally nurturers. We're naturally nurturers, and you have to be really careful because the world will take advantage of that nurturing spirit that God's given us and, you know, use it against us and then say, oh, well, you said no, or, you know, if they ask you to do something at church for the millionth time and you just don't feel like doing it and you just say, you know, I'm just not feeling it. Well, then you're not serving the Lord, or you're not committed enough. And it's like the shame and the guilt, right? If we could walk out of like the shame that we feel about being authentic and really literally picture it on the cross, like we would have so much more freedom, you know? Shame is a huge culprit in boundary setting because you have been shamed somewhere in your life for having a boundary. Like the first word a toddler uses is no, because they're trying to establish their identity and their value system and all of that, right? And we have to learn how to say no. We have to learn how to say yes to certain things too. Like a lot of times we don't say yes to things because we're afraid of what people will think. Or, you know, we're afraid there's a fear, underlying fear there. Well, that's still not operating in your boundaries, because if you value adventure or you value freedom or whatever, and there's these things that are coming up that you want to do, but you don't do those, then you're not living according to your values. You're not having good boundaries for yourself. So there's a really good book called Boundary. It's just called Boundaries. It's by Dr. Henry Cloud and Towson or something like that. I can't remember the author's names. I teach this book all the time. I've taught it at church. I've used it with my clients. And it's a great book. It's something that, you know, you have to really kind of read. And, you know, if you really, really want to get a great grasp on boundaries, I would really highly suggest that book. It's a really great read. You get the workbook and just take your time going through it. And, you know, just start by thinking about, you know, like going back to the beginning, what are your values? Get clear on that. Because when you get clear on what your boundaries are and your values are, then you're going to start operating in a different direction. You're going to start operating, you know, not out of a need to people please, but out of a need to be yourself, you know? So that's all I've got to say for that today. I'm really glad a lot of people jumped on. Thank you for jumping on. That's awesome. Tomorrow I am going to share something for women, but I think I'm going to do it tomorrow evening because I know a lot of people are doing online church and I don't want to interfere with that. So tomorrow evening, what I'm going to be doing is a little Bible reading and a little Sabbath kind of rest thing for ladies, for women, kind of going along with the women and wholeness aspect. My hope in these live videos is I'm doing like a 3-week thing. This week we'll be talking about mental things, you know, mental strongholds, emotional blocks that we have. Then I'm going to do a week of spiritual blocks and spiritual growth that we all struggle with, in a week of that. And then I'm going to do a week of physical stuff, talking about nutrition and supplementation and all of that, because for me, I consider myself an integrative therapist. I combine mind, body, spirit, because I don't think just talk therapy or just spirituality or just physical stuff is the answer. I think we have to have all three. So that's why I'm kind of doing this whole like 3-week live videos for you guys. So I'm hoping you're getting something out of it. Share it if you want. I'd be grateful for that. And I will put up on my Facebook page tomorrow what time I'm going to share the live video tomorrow for the Bible reading. So hope you guys can join me, and I hope you have a wonderful Saturday, and thanks for joining me. Bye.